Hey everybody, this is Mr. Moffin coming at you again with another APUSH video. We're continuing our look at topic 8.2, touring the Cold War. Last time we looked at the Cold War during the Truman years in Asia, and today we're going to be shifting gears into most of the 1950s during the Eisenhower administration. Now, starting at the end of the Truman administration and into the beginning of the Eisenhower administration, we are seeing not just the development of more deadly nuclear weapons, like the emergence of the hydrogen bomb. You've got nuclear weapons that are now hundreds of times stronger than what we used against Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II, but also a rapid, massive expansion of the number of nuclear weapons that we are producing. If you take a look here, prior to Eisenhower's election, we had, in the hundreds of nuclear warheads. But by the time Eisenhower leaves office in 1961, we're going to have upwards of 20,000 nuclear warheads. So one of the defining characteristics of Eisenhower in the Cold War is a massive, massive buildup of nuclear weapons. Enough nuclear weapons to destroy the planet several times over. Now, why is this done? Why is this viewed as necessary? Well, a big chunk of it is because of the influence of this guy. This is John Foster Dulles, the Secretary of State during the Eisenhower administration, and his brother was actually CIA at the same head of the CIA at the same Allen Dulles was head of the CIA at the same time. But anyhow, Dulles is going to be a major advocate for what we will call Brinkmanship. Now, Brinkmanship is the idea that the United States, in order to stand up to communism, has to show a willingness to go to the very brink of nuclear war to stand up for its interests. And it has to send a message that the United States will, if necessary, use its full arsenal of nuclear weapons. This is going to be done through what we call massive retaliation. Massive retaliation is part of the Brinkmanship policy that if the U.S. or any of its NATO allies are attacked by the Soviet Union or any of its communist allies, that we are not going to just simply retaliate with conventional weapons. We will use our full complement of nuclear weapons to destroy the enemy. And note, we've now got, as we go through the 50s, thousands of nuclear weapons. Now, this is important to keep in mind because of what this can really lead to. If the United States were to engage in massive retaliation following, a singular nuclear strike on, say, like West Berlin by the Soviets, you got to understand that Soviet radar technology will be able to pick up the nuclear weapons that are being flown in the air by the United States and its allies, and would then most assuredly respond with its full complement of nuclear weapons. Though in the 1950s, it was a much smaller number than what we had, but still, though, many nuclear weapons. And so what this would do is basically see all of these nuclear warheads get detonated all over Europe, all over Asia, and the Western Hemisphere. And the net result of that would be what would be known as mutually assured destruction. Code phrase for, everybody dies. And this is going to have a twisted benefit to the Brinkmanship policy. The idea being is that if everybody knows what the end result of a nuclear war is going to be, which is just total Armageddon, that makes you far less likely to be willing to engage in that first nuclear strike. The basic assumption is that whoever starts a nuclear war will be responsible for the total annihilation of the planet. And that is going to allow for some things to happen without having to use nuclear weapons, because everybody's now going to be on the same page, understanding what this really means. So understand, there is a tremendous fear as we get into the first part of the Eisenhower administration of any decision that involves nuclear weapons is going to seemingly guarantee total annihilation. So, a little bit tense during this time period. Now, that being said, we will see the Soviet Union and the U.S. and some other powerful nations meet in Geneva in 1955 to promote this idea of, not having to, end up in a mutually assured destruction situation, to promote the idea of, maybe we can ease some tensions globally so we don't, keep the likelihood of a mutually assured destruction result from happening. And in fact, Eisenhower is going to be definitely promoting in Western Europe and amongst NATO allies the idea of embracing nuclear technology and not simply fearing it through his Atoms for Peace plan. The idea being is, yes, we are developing thousands of nuclear warheads, and we're doing this in the name of self-defense for the U.S. and its NATO allies. But also keep in mind that this technology has tremendous, non-military uses. The uses of nuclear reactors to provide energy, seemingly, at least theoretically, limitless energy for the world. So there's this kind of weird dichotomy of, at the same time, we are ramping up for complete nuclear annihilation, but at the same time trying to sell, the benefits of a modern nuclear age. At the same time, we're going to see some changing in the leadership. Stalin is going to die finally in 1953, and in 1956, Nikita Khrushchev will take over as the premier of the Soviet Union. And this is going to mark a turning point. No, the Soviet Union is not going to abandon communism, and no, they're not going to be a liberal nation, but the absolute disregard for human life under Stalin's leadership is now going to be gone. As soon as Stalin dies, his memory is basically, his legacy is torn down. You see the statues of Stalin come down, you see the pro-Stalin propaganda tossed away, and, the idea is that this is a new day. Yes, it's authoritarian, but it is, not a government that is going to be responsible for killing millions of its own people. So there's some signs there that maybe things might be turning a corner. A little bit, maybe. But it's not going to really last that long. There's going to be a number of sources of tension that's going to create problems. One of these is going to be what's happening in Hungary in 1956. In Hungary, we're going to be seeing college students organizing an uprising against the communist government that was sponsored by the Soviet Union. And when this happens, there's this little moment of time where it looks like Hungary has a chance to break away and get past the Iron Curtain. All that it needs is American intervention, American assistance. The Hungarians are begging for it. We want the Hungarians to be free from communism. But Eisenhower does not act. And it's not because he loves communism, and it's not because he's, cold and heartless towards the plight of the Hungarians. As you can imagine, it's a simple matter of, am I willing to potentially annihilate the whole planet to free Hungary from communism? And the calculation for that is pretty clear. And the answer is no, it's not worth it. And it will not take long for Soviet forces to come in and crush the rebellion. And this is not the only time where there's opportunities to kind of, maybe change the map in terms of communist control in the Cold War that, is kind of turned down by Eisenhower out of a fear of what could happen in terms of a nuclear war. Now, in addition to that, there's going to be, a continued rivalry between the U.S. and the Soviet Union with regards to space technology. In 1957, we will see the Soviets launch Sputnik, pictured right here, the first working satellite orbiting the Earth. And this is going to have a seismic impact on the United States. The United States had kind of held itself up as the superior technological nation. We were the ones that developed the bomb. Well, now the Soviets have developed the first satellite. And what does this mean? Are the Soviets now able to spy on us from space? If the Soviets can, develop this kind of technology, what other kind of technology do they have Are they going to win the arms race? Are they going to win the Cold War? And so we very quickly start to see this association between winning the space race and winning the Cold War. And so the basic gist is whoever wins the space race is going to win the Cold War. So this is, kind of a focused version, or maybe a crystallization of the whole Cold War rivalry. And if we are already behind in the space race, Eisenhower is going to make a commitment with Congress to try to catch up, if not pass the Soviets. And this is going to lead to the passage of the National Defense and Education Act. And what this does is, put a prioritization in terms of putting more federal funding in education at the secondary level, high school level, in math and science programs. The idea being is that, American students are behind in the classroom, as Soviet students are, crunching, calculus equations and physics problems. American teenagers are bebopping at the malt shop, listening to Elvis Presley records. And so the idea is you gotta refocus the education on math and science, STEM kind of stuff before they use that acronym to give us the skills to win the Cold War. So, if you are finding yourself in a situation cursing Mr. Lovins or cursing Mr. Gray for chemistry or physics homework or calculus homework or anything along those lines, don't hate them. Hate the communists. They're the ones that put calculus and put physics in our high schools. Now, in addition to that, you're going to see the creation of NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. And what this is going to be responsible for is coordinating America's space development technology. We are already behind in terms of satellite development. We will see the Soviets be the first to put animals, dogs, chimps in space and return them safely. We will see the Soviets by 1961 be able to send the first human safely into space and return him. That was Yuri Gagarin. So understand, NASA is really up against the wall. It seems that every space milestone is being achieved by the Soviets first, and we have to try to catch up. But nonetheless, in the late 50s, despite some of the things that are going to be happening, like the Hungarian Revolt, the Suez Crisis, which we'll talk about another time, there's going, the arms build up. There was kind of a sense that there maybe is a general thaw that's going on. Except, we're going to see an incident kind of break all that apart. An American military pilot by the name of Gary Powers is going to be shot down over the Soviet Union in a spy mission. This U-2 plane is going to spark an international diplomatic crisis. It's going to be a major embarrassment for the United States to have that pilot shot down by the Soviets, and it serves to increase Soviet paranoia about what the U.S. is trying to do to the Soviets. And it pretty much sinks any diplomatic gains that had been achieved in the latter half of the 1950s. Now, that being said, there are going to be some things that are not going to be undone. For example, in 1958, we're going to see the U.S. and the Soviet Union agree to stop above-ground nuclear testing. That obviously is going to reduce the amount of radiation that is emitted into the air. So that's an important thing. But one more thing to keep in mind with Eisenhower is his concerns reflecting back as he's about to leave office in 1960 on where America is in terms of its prioritization. And he warns about a possible emerging military-industrial complex. The concern being is that we may have folks in American society, in the business world, folks that are weapons contractors, that may be putting personal profit over, what is best for the nation and the world. The simple idea being is that if you are a weapons dealer, you need to have a climate where war is a real possibility. And if peace is the climate, then you don't make money. And so you've got folks in the weapons industry trying to convince members of Congress to buy more and more weapons and painting a picture of a dangerous world. And if we buy more and more nuclear weapons and other types of weapons, then what happens is that we are more likely to use those weapons, which then puts, life at risk. So Eisenhower, coming from a position of, clear, relevance as president and former general, speaks to this danger. All right. We'll see you next time.